the corner, Berry.
Rick Berry has not missed a free throw against Washington. Now it is Berry. Back to Clifford Ray. Goes to Rick Berry.
Golden State getting that ball moving. Intended for Berry. Berry, look at that pass. Rick Berry, look at that shot, would you?
You want answers? I think I'm entitled. You want answers? I want the truth. You can't handle the truth.
Berry wants to make a move and three. There's a Berry. He's got his shot.
Hey everybody, Rick Berry here. That's right, mic'd up, and yeah, that's right, the man himself, Cyrus Saatsaz, is joining me, my partner in crime, and there's a lot to talk about. There's a lot of stuff going on. Obviously, the NBA Finals are starting. I have my NBA Finals shirt on right here.
Nice.
You probably don't have one of these, right, Cyrus?
I don't have one of those.
No,
I'm not a Hall of Famer.
NBA hat on, not about the Warriors, NBA all the way. There we go, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens tomorrow in game number 2, because game number 1 was really it was strange in a lot of ways to me, at least. I'm going to ask you to give some first. What was the thing about game 1 that popped out for you that was different than what you thought was going to happen?
Nothing. I think the Nuggets are going to, if anything, I felt like the game was closer than I thought. I'm counting on a Nuggets sweep or Nuggets in 5. I love this Heat's team. Jimmy Butler is one of my favorite players to watch, but to me, these are two different classes of teams. So this is right on par for course for me. What about you, sir?
Well, to me, I was surprised at how well the Nuggets played after 9 days of a layoff.
Good point.
And there's a big thing, even on NBA.com, they had somebody talking, well, is the altitude a factor? Blah, blah, blah. Hell yes, the altitude's a factor. If you've never been to the altitude before, you need to do that sometime and try it. So if you're a bike rider or you're a runner or you do something of any type with using any type of energy, go to the mountains and get up at 5,000, 6,000 feet or more and just see how you can breathe. I'm telling you, if you're not there for a few days to try to acclimate, it has an impact on you. Now, these guys are in great condition and stuff. It's not like it's going to destroy you for the whole game, but it certainly is going to have an impact. Sometime during the game, you're going to go, where's the air? Where's the air? And it can have an impact, no question. So I thought they did a terrific job.
Rick, you're an expert, if anyone, because you live in Colorado. You travel back and forth at least twice a year, probably more like 10 to 20 times a year. I lived in the Rocky Mountains in Wyoming for a year, and not to mention I was a former sponsor snowboarder. Yes, the altitude makes a massive difference. I read a column or a story where the Nuggets players were saying it still affects them, and they live there. So, but you're the expert on this. I mean, you literally live.
Without question, it's a factor, and I think that's why. I remember I said in our last conversation that Miami should, and I don't know if they did. I thought I'd read something, but it didn't verify. I couldn't find anything definitive about whether or not they left from Boston and came out to Denver to get acclimated to the altitude. Because coming out here the day before a game or something, that's crazy. I mean, if you have a chance to get out to get acclimated, you need to do that and get a couple of practices in so your guys can nullify the effect that the altitude may have on you. So they played exceptionally well. They had a letdown. I thought it was great after the game. Coach talked to the players there, the Nuggets, and said he said, "Hey guys, we haven't accomplished anything yet. We did what we needed to do." And we have to keep our focus. The same thing. You got to keep your head in the game all the time, because they had the big 20-point lead, and it's the only quarter they got outscored in was the last quarter. But you don't want to give any team any hope, because here's the thing: what they did by doing that, even though they won, psychologically, they gave Miami and the players some hope, saying, "Hey, look, here's what we can do if we play well," because they shot 3-point shooting was abysmal, 25-something% in the first 3 quarters, and even for the game, some of their best, Duncan, didn't shoot the ball well, and they shot terribly, 25-something%. But in the last quarter, they shot 6 for 12. So that would have been a big factor in the game, because if Miami's not shooting the 3 points well, they're not going to win the game. Okay,
right.
That's a fact. Now, if their shooters come through for them again, and Denver plays the way they played in the fourth quarter, they could be in trouble and could lose this game. Now, I don't anticipate that happening necessarily, but it was a nice performance by the Nuggets. But I think they missed the boat a little bit by giving a little bit of hope to Miami by being outscored and giving up that many points in that fourth quarter. So
that's fair. No, that's fair, because momentum is a very real thing, Rick, as anyone knows. But
mental. This is where it is.
Yeah. Well,
in
that's what
your
that
head.
means mostly, right? When you say
Yeah,
momentum, it's
no,
all
it's
about
mostly it's here. It's here. It's
correct,
between the freaking ears. You got
correct.
to have the right attitude going in and doing that. Well, now, hey, if I'm there, say, hey, listen, guys, if I'm the coach, or if I'm Eric, I'm going to say, hey, guys, look at. We all know we didn't play our best game. We didn't shoot the threes well, blah blah. We didn't get to the free throw line. I mean, I couldn't even believe it when I saw how many free throws. I mean, they shot no free throws. It's crazy. I mean, the free throws. But you got to be able to attack. You got to get some other easy points. And so a lot of things they didn't do well. And
Wow.
yet they got it down where they didn't get beat by 20 points. So that's a psychological, effect. And you're trying to win one of those games on the road. Okay. And so they blew that opportunity in game one. They've got another game coming up tomorrow with an opportunity, knowing that they didn't play anywhere near their best basketball in that
Well,
game.
well, Rick, so when the Warriors were eliminated, I've been on vacation mode a little bit. I'm not a student of the game like I normally am, and I'm reevaluating this box score right now just to let people know what you mean. I didn't know this that none of the Heat starters had a single free throw
Right.
attempt. They
Right.
had 2 free throw attempts total in the
Right.
entire game, and that was from Haywood Highsmith, who anyway, that's crazy to me. So, but here's another stat that kind of stuck out though as well. The Nuggets did not shoot the ball well from three. Michael Porter Jr., who has been lights out, at least entering this series, was only 2 for 11. They shot 8 of 27, below 30% as a team. So the Nuggets did not shoot the ball well.
But this is what I'm talking about when you start analyzing and looking and seeing what happens. So I'm giving you all these things to be, if you're a
Yes,
Miami
sir.
fan, to feel good about, right? And
Yes.
hope wow, you didn't do that. But then if you're a Denver fan, say, hell, we were up by 20 points going into the
Uh huh.
quarter. We still won by double digits, and hell, we shot terrible from the 3-point line. So I
Absolutely.
mean, so you can always look at all of these things. But the bottom line is, it was interesting. Somebody wrote about it. Really, there was no way to have to defend the Joker. And the thing stat about the Joker is that the team wise, they have a better record when he gets 12 assists or more than they do when he gets 30 or 40 points in the game.
Mm,
So he's more effective and they're a better team when he's getting higher numbers of assists as opposed to scoring more points.
there
But
you
here's
go.
the thing that you have to understand. The Joker knows the game. And so he scores the points if they think they have to score the points. If they need him, he'll go try to get some for him. But he'd rather set his teammates up. He's really got the mentality of a point guard,
Right.
right? Get his teammates involved doing stuff. Hey, if you need some points, I'll try to get some points and score for you. Kind of like the way Steve Nash, who I love, played, and that's the way he approached the game. I mean, I just think that's the smartest way to approach it if you're handling the point. And a lot of times now everybody talks about the scoring point guard. So Jokic is the assisting center. And that's what he does. And he'll get his doubles and rebounds and get his triple doubles. He's a guy that can hurt you in so many different ways. So it makes it very difficult. And they said, yeah, Adebayo's fronting him and denied him a bunch of stuff down in the low post, which is great. But I think where he's most dangerous is when he gets the ball to the top of the key or 3-point line. Because if I would always have him get the ball right outside, top of the key, out behind the 3-point line, because he can shoot that shot.
Right.
He has to guard him.
Yes, sir.
You
You know,
have
I want to. I have 2 questions I want to ask you. One is Nikola Jokic. Again, it's incredible what this player's turned into, and I'm curious to know, in your opinion, how would his game translate to your era or to different eras? Like would he be as successful in the 70s or 80s as he is now? And then the second question, we talked about the free throws, and I'd love to get your opinion, because when I hear free throws, I always immediately think of officiating. And there is one official who's in trouble right now. But I guess the first question is the Nikola Jokic question. Would he thrive under any era? Like, would Will Chamberlain destroy him? Would he compete? Would he actually, would he actually, fit in the floor?
no question, because he understands how to play the game. I mean, and he's such a facilitator for a big man, and he could take the other team's big man away from the basket.
Right.
All right. And see, in the old days, the whole philosophy was play your guys tough, force them into your big men. I mean, you try to make the guys drive to force them in to try to score over your center. I had the good fortune of having Nate Thurman as my first center, a top 50 player, great defensive, one of the best defensive players ever in the history of the game, right up there with Wilt and Russell.
Right.
So, but that's what the philosophy was. But now that's not the case, because there's not a lot of rim protectors in the league anymore. And
Right.
certainly isn't one. And that's one of the things that Miami didn't do well. And I think one of the reasons that stat gets skewed a little bit, because stats don't always tell the whole story,
True.
is that they took shots and took a lot of shots from outside because they were down. They had to try to get back in the game. And then they didn't shoot the ball well. And they, it wasn't a lot of opportunities for them inside, things they needed to do, obviously, by the fact that they got 2 free throws.
Right.
God, that's crazy. Plus, I mean, I would challenge the Joker all day. Hell, I used to challenge Will Chamberlain and Bill Russell. But the Joker, Joker gets airsick if he gets over 4 inches, I think. So, I mean, he's not a shot blocker. So it's a totally different dynamic that you have to play with the Joker. But I love the way he plays. And so what do you do for him? I mean, how do you defend him? If he's out beyond the 3-point line, you can't just let him sit there and let him just have the shot all day, because he's going to shoot a high percentage of those and make them. And then when he has the ball, you have to be so careful with your man. And if you're smart and you know how to set your guy up and know how to move without the basketball, which is for a lot of guys a lost art for him. Trust me on this, because I don't even want to go into why I'm telling you all this, but a lot of guys have no clue how to set their man up. It's one of the easiest things in the world to do, because all I have to do is, if I get my guy, so I'm here, if I can get my defender and I know I want to go this way. So if I do something and I go to move like I'm going this way, even though I'm doing this way, I'm ready to push off and go back that way. So if I do this and he does just that little bit, I'm going to back cut him. I'm going by.
Right.
Okay. And with a guy like the Joker, I mean, my God, you get so many easy baskets. And so, again, those are the little nuances of the game that a lot of players don't know. Even like, LeBron James, he doesn't do things as efficiently and as effectively as he could, as great as he is. My God, I tried to get him, but he didn't want to listen to me or whatever, or didn't come back to me. There's things I could have showed LeBron years and years ago when I approached him, that as good as he is, he would have been stupid good, because he's so athletic, but he didn't take advantage of little subtle things to do and how to beat your defender depending upon how you guard it. The one that sticks in my mind so much is when I was watching my son Brent when he was with the Spurs. And the Spurs were playing against him, and Bruce Bowen, one of the best defenders in the league, individual defenders, was guarding him. And so he came off, I think it was Duncan and somebody else. So he came and he curled off a double. I think it was a double, or it might have been a single off, down the outside of the free throw line, down deep. And he came this way, and Bowen was trailing him. Well, if that happens, you come and you curl. Bowen's out of the picture. He's no longer a factor. And he's running to the free throw left at the key area, catches a pass, and boom, there's Bowen right in his jock. Well, they don't wear jocks anymore, but there's Bowen right up in his grill. I mean, so little stuff like that is just, it's not a difficult game. And the little subtleties and the little finer points of it are not being taught to these players.
Right.
To take full advantage of the God-given, amazing athletic talent that they have. I'm in awe watching these guys, seeing what they do. I mean, come on, we're watching this new, the new guy with the 7'4" freaking freak that's going to go.
Wemby, yes, sir.
The Wemby man. I mean, he's crazy. I mean, he's
Wembanyama.
7'4", and he's shooting mid-range pull-ups, and he's handling the basketball. I mean, it's a different world out there. But here's the thing: be taught and bring somebody in to teach how to be more efficient with the amazing talent that you have. There are so many players in the NBA today that if they knew these other things, as good as they are and as great as they are, they would be better. They would go to another level. Anyway, so I'll get that rant out of the way. So
no, it's a good rant. I'm with you. And this leads to the second question I asked, and I don't know how familiar you are with this story, but longtime NBA official Eric Lewis is currently under investigation by the NBA because a few people, some social media sleuths, uncovered a Twitter account. They call them burner accounts, right? People who maintain anonymity, yet they use Twitter to use that account to bolster their image, so whatever. In this case, he was arguing with a lot of people. This account's been active for like 5-6 years, and he's currently not officiating the NBA Finals. He's the only active official who officiated the finals last year who was not asked to come back. And the insinuation is that it's because of this investigation.
And
Your
what they
thoughts?
what I saw that. I didn't read all about it and everything, but what's the insinuation? Are they insinuating that he was calling certain plays in order to get an advantage with gambling?
No, I looked at. I mean, the reason why people are upset is because Eric Lewis supposedly is a Celtics fan. And so a lot of people feel like he's always been biased against the Lakers or anyone else that the Celtics have played against. But no, I mean I looked at a lot of those tweets and it was just mostly just him defending himself, arguing back with people who accuse him of being a bad official or rigging games. Like, but it was just him being very candid in these tweets and explain. And I don't know if I guess it would be a code of conduct maybe that he violated. I don't know, but it's just fascinating to me that he got exposed. He got exposed for having a Twitter account that he was using anonymously to defend himself. And I guess the NBA is investigating now. So that's
Yeah,
the
well,
story.
whatever it is, but let's focus on what's most important. He's not officiating; he'll have no impact on the outcome of the game. The players are going to have the outcome of the games in their hands and their control, and it's going to be interesting to see what happens. And Miami, because statistically, again, the analytics and the statistics are so amazing today. Sometimes way too much, but
Agreed.
they have to. It was egregious at times. Yeah, they have to up tempo the game. They're a much better basketball team when they play up tempo. Um,
Who,
they don't.
Miami?
Well, their record isn't anywhere near as good. If they're scoring 90 points or something a game, I mean, that's not going to play in their favor. But they had a bad game. I mean, it wasn't like it was the great defense. They had all kinds of unbelievable wide open looks. In fact, somebody brought it up. I was seeing somewhere that they had way more open three looks than they had in any other game so far in the playoffs.
Who, Miami?
Yeah,
Oh,
open looks.
oh. Well, I guess
So,
they didn't take
so
advantage of that, did
their
they?
offense just let them down. They just did not
Yeah.
shoot the ball well, and it was costly for them. I mean, there's no question about it. So, we'll see. It's going to be fun to watch it. I always enjoy watching it because this is when everything means so much more. Every game has so much more importance, and it's fun to see for me how players respond. And not the pressure, because there is no pressure if you have confidence. Remember that, folks. It doesn't exist. How they respond to the enormity of the situation, the expectations that are there, and the importance of everything that you do on the court is magnified in the playoffs, and the importance of it is magnified. And so, how do you deal with that? And how do you respond? And as I say, if you want to take a real look when you start talking about players and how good they are, this and that, look at what they did in the regular season and compare what they did that into the playoffs. Because if they're doing as well or even doing a little better, that's an accomplishment because the officiating changes. It gives the defense more of an advantage. It becomes a much more physical game, which I think is a disadvantage to the skilled player because the defense gets away with a lot more, and you really have to elevate your game in order to do that. And so just check that out because there are a lot of players, and even in baseball, the same thing. Not that the same thing doesn't happen in baseball. It's just that the importance of the situation because the pitcher doesn't change. The pitcher all of a sudden has no impact. The umpires aren't going to have an impact on it. It's how do you perform at bat when you're playing. That's where the main thing is. How do you perform as a pitcher? Is being able to have your control and put the ball where you want to put it. And how do you match up against your players that they have all the great scouting reports on, obviously. But how do you do at bat? I mean, that's a simple thing. You're either getting a hit or you're not getting a hit. You're getting
Mm-hmm.
a walk. I mean, so that's on the player, totally and completely on the player. And it's a matter of whether he plays at a high level or whether the pitcher is not performing up to the level that he can perform. There's no referees changing the dynamic of the game. That doesn't happen. It really doesn't. And I don't think that officials in baseball start changing their strike zone in the freaking playoffs.
Well,
But the officials in basketball change the way they call the game. There is no question about that.
yeah.
No question about that.
I
I
would
mean, how many
prefer.
times you see two guys they crash into one another? I mean, when I watch it, I say, well, I'm watching like my son Canyon's playing in the World Cup in 3x3 over in Vienna. Oh my God, it's like they maul each other out there. It's like, and it's worse than NBA playoff basketball. It's crazy what they allow them to do without the whistle being blown. And to me, that's a distinct advantage to the less skilled player.
Oh,
And
interesting. Okay, because I was going to say as a fan watching the games, I would prefer the refs not being involved. Like if the play on to me is good for the aesthetic, I can't stand hearing referees' whistles. And then for me personally, it also comes down a lot to, like, most people, 99.999% of the populace does not understand what it's like to be an NBA player, right? That's only the elite select few ever get that experience. Most of us scrubs, we play, on the blacktop, we play on the playground, and we're not calling ticky tack fouls in that kind of scenario. So it's hard for the experience of the average Joe who plays and then watches the game on TV to understand, to find it relatable when a referee is just blowing that damn whistle time and time and
All
again,
right, but
stopping
here's the
action.
thing. And I can understand where you're coming from, and nobody wants to see a parade, shooting 60 free throws a game or something.
Right. Yeah.
However, here's the thing. If the officials will just do the one thing, call the game according to the rule book every single time you step out on the court, and call it according to the rule book, whether it's in the first minute or the last minute. It's irrelevant whether the game's on the line or you just started the game. And here's what will happen. And if you call it the same way, so if you're going to call a foul according to the rule book, here's the thing, and it's a little touchy and it has no impact and stuff, well, then if you're not calling that at the start of the game, you sure as hell should not be calling it at the end of the game.
Fair.
And conversely, if you are calling it in the game there at the beginning, you should be calling it at the end, because the players, I can obviously firsthand, you will adjust to the officials,
Right.
which is crazy. You shouldn't have to adjust to the officials, because the officials should be calling it the same way every freaking game.
Right.
Okay. But some days they're letting more go. Other times they're not. One time it's a foul in this game. The next game you play, you do the same thing, and it's not a foul. I mean, that the inconsistency of the calls
Yes.
in basketball is what drives me absolutely bonkers, because
I'm with
I
you.
will adjust to it. I know the rules, and now it's just a matter of how is he calling it. Well, however he decides to call it, even if it is contrary to what I think the rule book says, and he's insistent about it, at least I can adjust to that. But when they do it one way at the start and one way at the end, that is oh my God, I want to go and just like shake him and hit him in the head. What the hell are you doing?
And I got the song queued up. There
It does. That's one of the things that's right up there at the top of, and they're the top of the list, in the top 5 for sure of the things that drive me crazy about the game. And here's the thing. It's correctable.
Easily
Very
at that.
easily. Very, very easy.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Before we move on to the Warriors, which I'm guessing is a topic that a lot of people want to hear your thoughts on, sir. One thing I was curious about going before we move on from the finals is why Eric Spoelstra chose to go with Haywood Highsmith. I have no familiarity with this kid at all. I googled him. He played, I think, D2 in college. Just one of the many undiscovered talents that the Miami Heat have promoted on the roster. But we didn't see Kevin Love play a minute. He DNP'd.
That's the thing I was going to bring up to you. I was surprised,
Yeah,
because of the poor 3-point shooting, and the thing with the Joker is to bring him in and let him be center and have Joker have to guard him and let him
correct.
go out and give him a chance to shoot some threes. I mean,
Exactly.
I that was surprising. Very surprising, especially he has so much more experience than any player on their team when it comes to playoff competition.
And I imagine the reason is defense. That's probably why Haywood Highsmith was playing. And look, it's hard to argue against Spo's rationale because Denver, again, shot under 30% from three. They only scored 104 points, but you got to score points yourself, and 93 was not enough. So, but Spo is such a brilliant coach. Is he, in your opinion, is he the best coach in the NBA?
I can't ever answer that, because he's one of the better coaches from the outside. Because if you're not there in practice every day and hearing what he says, you're not in the huddle hearing everything. That's why they got the mics back in there. So that's always kind of interesting to hear how coaches are dealing with things right now, and you get a pretty good idea of how they're approaching by what they have to say under the circumstances and what. And so again, that stopped for so many years. I've told this before. It stopped in 1975. When Casey Jones was the coach of the Bullets when we played them in the finals, and Bernie Bickerstaff, the assistant, was doing all the talking, and it did not make Casey look very good, and it cost him his job. I mean, not only getting swept but what was going on in the huddle, and so coaches realized that, and anybody watching it saw that, And so the coaches said, screw that. I mean, I don't want you in my huddle listening to what I have to say and what we're going to be doing. So now it's back. I think it's good. I mean, why shouldn't you not have to do that? It's fun for the fans to have an idea, see what the coach is, how he's approaching it and all. Because here's one of the big reasons why. Because as I told you, I call it the black line syndrome. I have my syndromes all the time in basketball. So you sit at the bench, the coach is telling you all to do. Yeah, coach, okay, great. He tells you. They step across that black line, and all of a sudden what the coach said all of a sudden goes into the freaking Bermuda Triangle. They have no idea, remember what he said. And that's like, hey, well, that wasn't a very good play. The announcers, when especially I hear that, the color on us, well, that's not a very good play coming out of a timeout. Well, how the hell do you know that's the play that he called? He might have called something totally different. And what happened? They didn't execute. They didn't try to do what he said they were supposed to do. But if you hear him in the huddle and you see what's supposed to be done, and then a lot of times you go out and see, did the team actually go out and try to do that?
Yeah, when it comes to results, it's hard to argue against Spoelstra, especially. And you played against someone who I respect tremendously just because he clearly knows basketball. He wins almost anywhere he goes, and that's Pat Riley. Did you envision when you played against him that he would turn into this savant as a coach and executive?
No, I had no idea. I told you my Pat Riley story, right?
Did you? I forgot.
You ever heard my Pat Riley story?
I don't know.
When I was at the University of Miami, we were playing with Calvin Murphy, so we were playing Niagara on the road. And so I was going up to see the coach in his hotel room, and the door was open. As I get up there, I heard this guy inside that, Bruce, I'm telling you, it was Bruce Hale was his name. He says, Bruce, I'm telling you, this guy is way better than Rick Barry. And he was talking about Pat Riley, trying to get him to go to Miami before he went to. And I never forgot that.
Who said this?
Some guy that knew the coach who was trying to get him to go after Pat Riley to play at the University of Miami.
Well, that motivated you, right?
Well, no, I said, really? I said, who the hell is this Pat Riley guy? And so I remembered that, and anyway, obviously that guy was wrong, but that's okay.
Yeah, exactly. He was blatantly wrong. And before we move on to the Warriors, Rick, and speaking of coaching, on the other side of the coin, when we talk about great coaches like Spo, there's a coach that the Celtics have named Joe Mazzulla, who has been criticized all season long for, he always saves his timeouts. I'm basing this off what Celtics fans say. I've heard their criticisms, and he supposedly does not like calling timeouts. And what I thought the criticism I find very valid is the Celtics went into Game 7 knowing full well that the Miami Heat were going to implement a zone-heavy defense for most of that game. It's what was working. It was no secret, and we didn't really see an adjustment from the Celtics offensively to counter that. Your thoughts on the Joe Mazzulla situation in Boston?
Well, like anything in life, it's a learning experience, and you get better. And he doesn't have the experience of having done it. Probably helped him, but he did get him, having to step in and got him to the chance to play in the finals of the conference. I mean, it's not like they but he didn't. He wasn't the guy missing shots. He wasn't the guy turning the ball over. I mean, the Celtics kind of shot themselves in the foot, and the team itself was just on a roller coaster ride.
Yeah.
I mean, they were Jekyll and Hyde.
Yes, they were
going to freaking show up.
Yes, they were.
And I mean, just like they're down 3-2 to Philadelphia. All of a sudden, they came back and they played. Dr. Jekyll showed up again. And then Mr. Hyde showed up in the next series, and then Dr. Jekyll would show up. And that, as a coach, is kind of frustrating. As a coach, you want players who play consistently, okay, that you can count on a regular basis to do things. And as a player, you should be striving to be a more consistent player, knowing full well that there are going to be some games, because we're not perfect human beings, especially on offense, where you're going to have games where you can kick it and it'll go in the basket. You could have other games where you just, for whatever reason, it's just not going in. It goes in and out, or it's off for a quarter of an inch, and that's enough to hit the rim and bounce out. And that's going to happen. And I was told that by my coach in college, Bruce Hale, who was a great pro basketball player himself. He said, you're going to have somewhere between 8 to 10 games during that season that your shot's not going to be working and it's just not going to be going. He said that when you see that that's happening, you have to be smart enough to still find ways to be productive and help your team. So if you're not making those shots, drive and get to the basket, get it to the free throw line, the rebounds, get out on the break a little bit more. Stop always taking the shot. Like you say, you got to shoot your way out of it. Yeah, but you can help that cause because there's something about seeing that ball go through the basket, feeling it go off your hands just one time, even if it's not a longer distance shot. Because again, it's up in here. You got to feel good about it, and then believe in yourself. But you do still have to shoot it. You got to take the open shots. But the problem that the Celtics have is two of their key players have what I have dubbed my other syndrome, right? It's the Westbrook syndrome, right? And that is forcing the issue, trying to make things happen that aren't there. Take what the defense gives you, keep it as simple as possible. And they create turnovers that hurt them tremendously. That's what happened against the Warriors.
Mm-hmm.
I think in one of the games, both of them had 5 turnovers each. And turnovers are a killer because even if a team gets 15 more shots than you because of turnovers, right? And they're only shooting 33% from the field, and it's just 2 points, right? It's just 2 points, 1/3. That's 10 points
Yeah.
to their advantage, not counting threes. That's hard to make up. So that's the reality of it. As I said, this is not a complicated game.
Agreed. Yeah, people overly complicate something that does not need to. I'm with you 100%. 100% with you on that. Are you ready to talk Warriors?
Well, let's get some questions, before we go on to.
Sounds good. Okay. We'll go from the bottom to the top. Let's start with Rob W.
Hi, Rick. During your professional playing days, what were your favorite cities to visit
Ooh.
and why?
Ooh.
I'm curious about the nightlife, the food, all those kinds of things. Or maybe it was the competition. I'd love to hear your answers. Thank you.
And strip clubs. And don't forget strip clubs. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, well, I hated going to LA because I hated the baskets down there, and the rims. So
does Steph.
Huh?
So does Steph.
Yeah. So that was one of my least favorite places to go. I love going to New York because Ned Irish said I was too skinny and flaky and didn't draft me. He drafted Bill Bradley instead of me. And so I never forgave him for that. So I always loved going to New York just to be able to have a chance to kick the freaking Knicks' ass. And I had a lot of big games offensively against the Knicks in my career. So
Love it.
but I didn't particularly like in those days. You're busy doing it. I love to go to New York I'd love to go to New York, but I did it all before. I love to go to the Hayden Planetarium. I love to go to the Museum of Natural History, see that stuff, but and go to the theater to go see some great different plays, musicals, dramas, whatever. I really enjoy that. But other than that, no. Talking about the nightlife, I guess you have to ask the other guys who are out there doing it. The best thing you could do for your nightlife is go back to the hotel afterwards, get something to freaking eat, and go to bed. Because we had to get up at 6 o'clock in the morning to catch the first flight out in the freaking morning. It's not like we were jumping on a charter plane. There is no nightlife in a lot of places now. They get done with the game, they go right to the airport and get on a charter plane, fly to the next city to get a good night's sleep. So it's a different world now.
It is funny, Rick, how the schedule is crafted, especially for the Warriors. There are certain cities where the schedule makers don't allow them to spend extra time there. Salt Lake City comes to mind. But for some reason, when they travel to a place like Miami, you always get an extra 2-3 days after that game for them to enjoy all the luxuries and culture that has. So, Rick, let me ask you this: what percent? Just ballpark, right? What is in your opinion? What is the percentage of the average locker room where of the players who prefer to stay focused on the sport, on their profession, versus those who actually like to go out and explore the nightlife and enjoy bachelor life? And like, what's the breakdown there? Like, on average, how many players are going out, and how many players are like you, where if they go out it's for the culture? You're clearly, I respect your intelligence so much, sir.
I'm going to answer that right off the bat. I doubt very seriously if there's a very, very minute percentage are going out for the culture of any freaking city. Okay? So let's get that straight.
Fair.
And then it's just a matter of when. The thing is, they don't even have a chance to do it so many times because you're going to the airport to go to the next game. In our case, also, even though we were in the cities all the time, we didn't get any money. We weren't making millions of dollars to be able to go out and do things and spend money. And I mean, my God, with $8 a day per diem when I came into the league. Are you freaking kidding me? So no, it's a different world. I don't have the answer to doing that. And it's an individual preference for guys as to what they want to do. I mean, later on, in my career, late and stuff, when we won, I would get done. I'd go back to the hotel. In fact, some of the arenas we played in were so horrible. I would actually dress for the game in the at the hotel, and I go to the arena and I get taped, and I'd come to the hotel to take my shower. Okay, and then I'd order room service.
Well, Charles Barkley had these stories where he said he would sometimes have to wash his uniform in the shower. Would you have to do that too?
Oh yeah, that was maybe just for at the end, sometime in the beginning of his career, probably. But he got to the point where he got all the stuff where you never touched your uniform.
But did you?
I always had to go in, take my shower, and wash my uniform.
With your uniform on, is that how you did it?
I would go in the shower and wash my uniform, take it back, put it in a plastic bag, and pray to God that it dried out before the next game.
Oh my God.
Occasionally, not every game, occasionally our trainer, Dick D'Oliva and stuff, he would go ahead and collect them and do stuff knowing where to play the next night. We get to the next city, he'd put them in a bag and do stuff, and he'd go out and get them washed. That was later on. But at the beginning, no.
Well, did you ever hear a story? What about, you had two sons who were prominent NBA players, in Brent and John. Did they ever have stories about locker room frivolities and certain players who enjoyed the nightlife versus those who?
No, I never talked to them about that. I didn't. I would never question them about that. To be honest with you, I don't care what they did.
Right.
And my whole thing. Here's the thing. This one will create some stir. How crazy I am. It'll probably get somebody will pick it up. If I had gotten a chance to coach in the NBA, knowing how things went, I would allow married guys, if they didn't have family, do stuff, if they wanted to let their wives go on the road.
So repeat that again.
I would allow the guys in the team, if they're married, to allow their wives to go on the road.
Are they not allowed currently?
No.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, I actually didn't know that. Well, what's the reasoning for that?
Well, why? Because he's going to get done with the game, and he's going to go back and get something to eat or whatever with his wife and go to bed. Now before they may still go to bed, but if they're not staying in the city that same night, and they have that night, let's say it's in New York, and you're going to be, you're not going to leave until the next day because you don't play the next night, you don't leave the next day. When's the last time you've heard of a guy getting in trouble at 8:00 at night?
That's true.
Yeah. When does he get in trouble? Oh, 2:30 in the morning. Oh,
yep.
1:30. I mean, so if they're going to do something, they're going to go out and go out all night, do stuff. If they're there and their wife is there, you don't have to worry about a guy going out and even, getting himself in trouble. And then you got family matters at home, and that becomes a problem for him. I mean, you can eliminate a whole bunch of that stuff. Seriously. I mean, it's whatever the guy wanted to do. You just want to have the guys have peace of mind as to what they're doing. Now, here's the thing. The guys that wanted to go out and do all that stuff would probably be very upset to know that they had other wives that were there on the road if they were married too, because that would restrict them from going out and doing things that they probably shouldn't be doing.
Right.
So it's an interesting conundrum there. But yeah, again, you just having been a player, I think you approach the regulations and the things that you have differently than a guy who never played at that level to understand what it's like to be a player out on the road and away from your family doing things. And so, but they tend to fall into traps in the NBA the same way. Like everybody picked up on Bill Sharman with the morning shoot around stuff, which used to be nothing. It's a full scale freaking workout now. I mean, last thing I want to do is go out and expend any freaking energy at 10 o'clock in the morning when I got to play 40 minutes or more that night. What the hell? I mean, I just don't want to do that.
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I didn't want to do it. I had to do it, but I didn't want to do it.
I don't blame you, sir. Blame you.
Anyway, and let me get back to some cities that he talked about doing stuff. I used to love to go to Seattle.
They need a team.
It was fun. The great
it's a crime that they don't have a team.
As crazy it was. I really enjoyed going to San Antonio. You get to see. I mean, the Riverwalk now is so much better than it ever was. I mean, it's crazy to see that now. But that was a fun, city to go down to. Plus, I like Mexican food, so it's and. Wait,
but let me ask you, Rick. This is an important topic since you brought that up. When you say you like Mexican food, do you like authentic Mexican food or Tex-Mex, which is what they're serving down in San Antonio, or all the above?
Well, I don't know exactly what's Tex-Mex and what's, regular authentic Mexican food. To me, it's Mexican food. Okay.
Fair enough.
I tell you what I like. My whole thing for a restaurant, if they don't have good salsa, at the start. Okay, if they have watery salsa, I'm not eating there.
There you go. That's
I
universal.
salsa
That's
with some
universal.
consistency in it. I don't want it real hot because I'm a gringo. I mean, and so that's my whole thing. How are the chips for that? Because
Oh,
I can make a meal of chips, great salsa, and guacamole, and that's how I do
there
it.
you go.
Because the other stuff, how can some screw it up and some are better than others. But my whole premise for making a recommendation for a Mexican restaurant is the salsa good with consistency, not too hot, and do they have good guacamole? And
There you
then I'll
go.
go from there. But I generally, it just depends. I mean, I might be in the mood for a burrito or something of that nature, but I usually go. I like enchiladas, chicken or cheese enchiladas. I don't have beef enchiladas and stuff, and so that's what it is. But I enjoy Mexican food because it doesn't take forever to get served, and it doesn't cost an outrageous amount of money unless you're in New York or L.A. or Chicago. And so, yeah, so that's it.
And
But
if you order,
I got to think of another city that I enjoy going to. Um, Actually, I wasn't thinking about the city and all the culture and doing this stuff. I mean, you're on the road.
yeah,
It's like, and it's a different thing. It's a different thing when you're in your 20s as opposed to when you're late 20s and your early 30s because we as individuals, we change. That's
right.
why anybody get married. I always tell you, if men couldn't get married till they were 30 years old and women till they were 25, the divorce rate would plummet.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly.
Because you're 21 years old, you're getting married to somebody 18, 19, 20 years old or something, or you're 25, 23, whatever. Over the next 5 to 10 years, you are going to change as to what's important in your life.
Yes, sir. 100% right.
And your thoughts about what is appealing to you and what's not appealing to you may change. Well, you change, but does your bride change, or is she going to be exactly the way it is, and the same thing there? Now all of a sudden you don't have the same things necessarily in common.
Right.
So anyway, I think if you look at that, you see divorce rates 30 and above would probably be significantly lower than when they get married a little bit too young. So. But one other city, I'm just trying to think of what other real pop up. Oh, I used to love to go. Actually, loved going to Dallas because again, Mexican food. It was good. The weather's usually good, except when I played in the ABA. My friends down there, they said, "Would you stop coming here anymore in the wintertime? Because every time you come here, at least it snows once." Seriously, it's like almost every year that I went to Dallas on one of the trips and everything, it snowed, and it doesn't snow very often in Dallas, Texas. That happens. The people panic. They have no idea how to drive in snow. So anyway, that was I go Dallas and Houston for that reason, for the Mexican food, and Phoenix, same thing with the Mexican food. It's so we actually
Did you play when you were in the ABA? Did you play in San Diego?
yeah, we actually played a game in San Diego. They tested the markets in places. We played a couple of home games in Fresno, California. Played the Celtics in Fresno. I remember that. We went up and tested the market for Seattle. We tested the market in Phoenix before they ever had a team, and so that was kind of interesting. And we did play down in San Diego. I remember playing a game down in San Diego. Yeah.
The reason why I bring it up is because San Diego has a particularly delightful treat that you don't find in most other cities, and it's called a California burrito, where they put French fries in the burrito. That's the only difference. But
French fries in a burrito.
It makes such a drastic positive difference. And there's a Mexican food truck down the street from where I live here in Guerneville that serves California burritos. It's to die for, Ray.
Never heard of it, but if I had to do that, I probably want to try it with sweet potato fries as opposed to.
Oh, look at you, just mixing it up. Are you ready to go to Craig?
Sweet potato fries. They're lower on the glycemic.
Agreed. They're healthy.
Relatively healthy. I mean,
relatively correct.
I'm actually lighter. I'm lighter now than I was when I played ball.
Incredible. Wow.
Yeah, I'm a few pounds lighter. I've kind of maintained in that 212 to 218 range, and I try to keep it at 215 or lower if possible. But you got to be careful of what you eat. So it's important.
The old adage, right? You are what you eat, and I believe in that. I really do. You want to go with Craig in Pleasanton?
Yeah.
Let's see what Craig has to say.
Hey, Rick. This is Craig from Pleasanton. Hey, I feel that basketball IQ is a very important part of the game. Besides yourself, who did you feel had a real high basketball IQ during your playing days? And who do you think has a high basketball IQ in today's game?
Well, the second part of your question, we answered a lot right away. The Joker has a great basketball IQ. The really outstanding point guards. I think most of the outstanding players have a really good IQ, along with the defining quality. which I've spoken about many, many times, and that is a natural feel for the game. You can't teach a natural feel for the game. Now, basketball IQ can be taught to you if at an early age you're explained the things, man ball relationship, all the other things. Make sure, if the ball moves, you move. If your man moves, you move. And the thing that's not taught enough of is that the same thing appeals not just on defense, it's on offense. If your man's driving and doing stuff, I spoke to this many times. Move, give your teammate an angle in case he can't get to the basket, so he's someplace to get rid of it, and not get stuck up in the air with a defender between him and his other teammates. So these are the little things I talked about earlier in the program that aren't I don't think are being taught to players, which should be getting taught to them when they first start out. There should be curriculum for anybody that's getting to coach any youth team that he needs to follow. And these are the subtle little things that need to be in there to be able to convey that to these young players so it becomes second nature to them and their basketball IQ becomes high. And then if they're blessed with the God-given talent and ability, well, they're going to become really nice players. And if they have the natural feel, now they can become really great players. So yeah, that's kind of how it goes with that. So anyway, and then the first part of the thing, I almost got so caught up on the second part of his question. Let me remember what he said. He asked me, what was it?
He asked about basketball. We can hear it again. Here's Craig.
Hey, Rick, this is Craig from Pleasanton. Hey, I feel that basketball IQ is a very important part of the game. Besides yourself,
back in my
who did you feel had a real high?
So I think I answered that question. Yeah, it was back in my day if I did it. Yeah, it's, the great players, didn't you? I mean, Jerry West, Oscar Robertson. I mean, you start naming all the great players. Bill Russell, IQ, understanding the things. I mean, Cousy. I mean, all the great players were taught the game because back in the days, it was so much more fundamentals and things being taught. I think the problem today is, and I've said this before, and I won't mention names, but there are a great many players in the NBA making obscene amounts of money today who are really outstanding players who are never going to be as good as they should be or could have been if they had the fundamentals of the game down and were taught properly about it and had a better IQ about the game. Because you're then able to capitalize and utilize those God-given skills and abilities to their fullest.
Here's Jim Cleveland. We haven't even touched on the Warriors yet. Hopefully one of these questions brings it up.
Hi, Rick. What do you think the impact is of Bob Myers leaving the team? Secondly, the future of Draymond Green. Do you think the Warriors should lock him down for a longer term than through next year?
Oh boy. Okay. We could do a long show just on this topic alone. The Warriors have an enormous number of questions to be answered.
And this is where I'm your resource, sir. I think I've familiarized myself with the cap, so I can consider myself to be a cap expert.
Yeah.
So
okay. The cap is a whole nother issue that you need to just focus on. I don't want to be focused on that. That would not be my deal. I wouldn't want to be in that area. That's why as a GM and stuff, I want to have a cap expert.
That's what I'm saying. I've studied it, Rick. I can answer almost anything.
If I was a GM of a team, I would have a cap expert who was there, who understood it inside out, and could explain to me, say, hey, I'd like to do this. How does that fit in? Tell me. Let me talk about the players, their talent, whatever I want to do something. You tell me whether or not we can do this, what happens financially, whatever, because I don't want to deal with that.
Right.
But it's an important factor, depending upon what your owner says. He says, I don't give a crap. Do what you got to do. Get, if you feel you need to get somebody, let's go get them. So putting that all aside, first of all, who's going to take over? Who's going to be the new general manager? Or are they going to have a president and general manager? Or are they going to get two separate people to do that? How are they going to work together? And then the big thing is, I think there's a number of issues that have to be there. Draymond Green is certainly one of them. Do you want to pay him what other teams might be willing to pay him and pay those outrageous monies and have to pay the luxury tax, based upon the fact that, based upon what you told me in an interview that Steve Kerr inferred that he thought Draymond punching Jordan Poole had an impact on the chemistry of that basketball team.
They all did. Draymond himself said that punch cost them the second round. Draymond said that they would have gone further if that had not happened. And my guess is the impact was primarily Draymond not being able to be himself as a leader, because until that punch, he was a vocal individual. He would call people out. And after that punch, he had to be a muted version of himself for a long time while we reestablished, his credibility and yeah, that messed up a lot.
That goes back to, I think, showing you one of the problems that exist in today's world with the sensitivity of our youth. They are so used to being coddled and spoiled that they weren't brought up in a strict manner. They got away with everything in the world, and they can't deal with stuff like that. I mean, okay, guy did that, you can get mad at him doing everything. You say, hey, you know what? It happened in the spur of the moment. Like what happens on the court, the same with me. In a game, I say something, I do it. Practice. When I walked out of the gym or I walked out of the arena and everything, that was over. That was over. You can't change what happened there. It's over. Deal with it. If you're mad, tell me, get pissed off, whatever it is. But move on.
Yeah.
You can't allow that to impact you in a negative way, personally or team-wise. I mean, that's the sad part about it. It's, we had guys got into fights and do stuff. I mean, you had all kinds of crazy stuff would happen, and it happens in all sports. But it shouldn't have that kind of an impact on a team, and it's sad.
Yeah, agreed.
And so that's the decision. How do you, if you want to keep Draymond, how do you keep Draymond if you keep Poole?
Well, I mean, supposedly, from what I've gathered publicly from what they've said, whatever these issues are, they're in the past. But it affected him this year.
Hold on. Well, okay, I'll go, because remember that video we talked about one time on one of our shows when Poole came off the court and Draymond tried to come over and do something. And
yes.
Okay, that's an example of being caught up all in yourself, worried about yourself, not even willing to have your teammate come over to give it. And credit to Draymond's credit, he was trying to be supportive, and so that was a little bit of a telling thing that maybe that all wasn't forgotten like it should have been.
The only reason why I think
it also, and I'm saying, because it also for Jordan's behalf, it also was something. I know how it is, how pissed off you get, and somebody comes. It doesn't matter. He probably didn't even know. Maybe it could have been Steph who would have done that.
Exactly.
One of his other mates who did it. It was just one of those things. I don't think it was intentionally aimed at Draymond, because it was Draymond. Whoever I think had gotten up to him at that particular time, he would have responded the same way. But
real quick, just to provide context, you're referring to this clip where Jordan Poole basically just he was coming back to the bench. He wasn't happy with his play. Draymond came to offer support, and Jordan Poole just grabbed his arms and kind of pushed him away. But Jordan Poole did the exact same thing to Klay Thompson, and I think that's why that incident got played down. Jordan Poole was just frustrated and didn't want to hear from anyone, but it wasn't a good look, regardless. I'll give you that.
No, I agree. So that's a decision. And then same thing with Poole. I mean, even to the point that, obviously Steve Kerr lost confidence in him. I mean, look at his minutes went down. He didn't play well in the playoffs. And then the other one that's right up there and there with Draymond, it's like, like a horse race that has 1A and 1B, is Klay Thompson.
Yep.
Do you want to give Klay Thompson at this stage of his career a long-term big dollar contract? I mean, that's a big decision to have to make. You know how much I love Klay. I mean, for the sake of the team, if there's something out there that can help you and still keep you competitive and maybe help build for the future to keep it going, to stay at a high level, maybe you can't do that and you don't want to do that. I told you before when we talked the other day that I had read something about the fact that supposedly the Lakers, I mean, who knows? This is all bullshit that everybody throws out there, that they were willing to give up Reeves and Akamura, or whatever the hell his name is.
Rory,
Akamura, and a first round draft pick down the road for Klay Thompson. Now, for the Lakers, I think that would be a hell of a move for the Lakers to go ahead and get Klay to go down there. But then again, do you want to do that and help bolster a team that's one of your big rivals? All right, so that's the decision that has to be made and thought about as to what is being offered, if indeed that's even a truth to that. But I do think that as far as keeping Draymond and paying that kind of money for him and paying that kind of money for Klay, if other people become available who are out there who are younger and can contribute to what you want and play the kind of basketball that you would like to see them play, which is the Warrior style of basketball, which is the way the game should be played. I commend Steve on that. those are major decisions. And what do you do with, all of a sudden, Kaminga, who I thought was showing some signs of coming along, and if who would go out in the offseason and shoot 1,000 shots a day from 3-point range to get his 3-pointers down and make him more effective there, because he's a talent. I mean, and he has a nice feel for the game. Okay, he does, and he can get to the basket, which I like. He tries to attack the basket, sees the floor, and can pass the ball to some people. Do you give up on him? I mean, it's like he hardly played in the playoffs, especially in the next series. So what's the story with him? And then what do you do with Moody, who they seem to like? He's got size. He's supposed to, decent defender, can shoot the ball some. But that's the one thing I didn't understand is that, and then the guys that were playing during the season all the time, the two-way guys, hardly played at all in the playoffs. So you gave all those minutes to two guys that you never used in the playoffs, when those minutes could have gone to your top draft guys that you had to give them even more experience to hopefully make them better come playoff time.
Right.
So there was a lot of things that went on that were very difficult to understand. And as they say, unless you're there all the time with the players in practice, understanding what's going on, you can't second guess. You can second guess Steve as to what he was doing, but it's not fair to him because you don't know everything that's happening and what's transpiring when they're at practice, during the course of the game, in the locker room. I mean, all of those things play into the decision that's being made by the coach.
Yeah, I'm looking up the contract situations right now. Rory Hachimura is going to make approximately $7 million next year in the final year of his deal. The Austin Reeves part of it, I thought he was going to be a free agent. And I'm looking right now. So Austin Reeves is going to, I mean, it says here that deal can't work. It's impossible. Just because he's going to be a restricted free agent. Austin Reeves is. So you'd have to do a sign and trade, and the Warriors just don't have you have to have cap space to do sign and trades. So the Warriors aren't eligible for that. Klay Thompson's going to make $43 million next year, so the salaries wouldn't match with those two. I see there is speculation. Someone proposed that trade, but it's legally impossible. I don't see how you could do that. I really don't.
I'll rely on you, having studied the crazy rules for all of that stuff. But I mean, from just a player standpoint and everything, it's something that you would have to say, well, wait a second, these are, two nice players. I mean, Reeves really impressed me. I thought, what the hell is it? And then I watched him all the time. The guy's a nice, steady, sound player.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Look, I'm with you. Like, I feel like we're about to find out what kind of owner Joe Lacob is. To me, the greatest sports owner ever was Eddie DeBartolo. I grew up watching him create a dynasty with the 49ers. And one of his approaches was treat your players like their family, but remind them that this is still a business. And so when they're no longer a valuable asset, I'm going to trade you for something better. He cut ties with Joe Montana when Montana still had a few years left, cut ties with Ronnie Lott, Roger Craig. And so we're about to find out right now if Joe Lacob is going to be someone who lets nostalgia and feelings, take priority over building the best roster. Because I'm with you, I love Klay Thompson, and I'm not saying that flippantly. I mean it. I love what he's contributed. I love him as a person, but he's no longer the player he was. And if you're going to continue having championship aspirations, he can't be a part of that, or he's going to have to take a massive pay cut. So, and this is the decision Joe Lacob really faces in front of him: is are you going to hold on to these guys who are past their prime? Draymond Green, I think, is a little bit different. I think he has more value, and you could obviously, your thoughts are more valid than mine on this, but we're gonna find out what kind of owner Joe Lacob is. One interesting thing, by the way, in all likelihood, Mike Dunleavy Jr. is going to be the general manager now. Now, what role Kirk Lacob, Joe's oldest son, will also have remains to be seen. The scenario I see likely happening is that the two titles that Bob Myers held could be split, where maybe like the president of basketball operations title goes to Kirk. He's currently the executive vice president in that role. And then Dunleavy Jr. could take on the GM role. Your son, Brent, is someone who I've been advocating for. I think your son took your basketball IQ. I don't know if it was handed down genetically or how much you taught him or both, but I respect his basketball mind and who he is as a person. I love the fact that the Barry family would be back with the Golden State Warriors. And Brent in 2019 was recruited to be Bob Myers' assistant GM, but he turned the role down. I'm guessing you probably know this better than me because it was a lateral move. I mean, he was just going to take the same role with the Warriors that he had with the Spurs. The Spurs, meanwhile, were telling him they're grooming him to replace R.C. Buford. I really wish Brent would come back and take the helm. I think that would be a phenomenal move. But I hope that paints.
I think you're right about the grooming it for RC because they took him off of VP of basketball operations, and they made him the GM of their G League team.
Right, exactly.
Kind of experience, and plus the fact he's down there, he's been established there, his family is there. The Myers thing was never going to work because he still had his kids still in school, and he wasn't about to pick up and not stay there.
There you go. That's
why he took the Spurs job in the first place, because he was really doing well with his broadcasting, not just as a color analyst, but in the studio and everything else. Brent's he's very bright. He's got a sense of humor. I mean, he's very clever.
Agreed.
He reminds me so much. He and my son Canyon are so much alike. It's unbelievable because they self-taught himself how to play musical instruments, and they're really intelligent. But there's the reason why he didn't take it there, because of his family situation.
There you go.
Yeah.
So are you saying
there's so many things to look up? I mean, to see what's going to happen in this offseason with the Warriors. It's going to be a very interesting offseason to see what they do, what their game plan is.
And Rick, here's another and this is where being a cap expert is important for the Warriors. They're in a position right now, and Joe Lacob has said publicly, and I think he said this repeatedly, that he does not want to spend over $400 million in payroll. That's a lot of money. It's hard to blame him. He can afford to spend more, but look, if that's the line, that's the line. But the Warriors right now, as currently constructed, and this is assuming they keep the 19th pick, this is assuming they fill out the roster with veteran minimum deals, they're going to be spending approximately $490 million next year when you factor in luxury tax penalties. So if they're going to meet that $400 million line, they're going to have to lop off $90 million in salaries. What makes a task like that particularly complicated is you can't just waive players who have guaranteed deals, right? So you have to trade them, but you'd have to trade them to partners who are well under the cap so that they can send back what's called a trade exception. The Spurs come to mind, for example. The Spurs are under the cap, so you could trade Jordan Poole to them and send that $27 million he's owed next year and get back nothing except what's called a trade exception, and that way you're shaving that money off. I don't know what the Warriors are going to do. They're in massive amount of trouble. Maybe Bob Myers saw that and was like, why do I want to deal with this? I had my run. Life is great. I'm married to a Lakers cheerleader. I have 3 beautiful children. I have enough money to last me 10 lifetimes. Why do I want to continue doing this? I don't know. That's what the Warriors are dealing with right now, though.
Well, no, I think you just brought up a very valid point. I mean, Bob's an intelligent guy. He sees the handwriting on the wall. He realizes that they had one of the best runs that any franchise has ever had in any sport over a decade or so, or whatever period of time. And seeing where they are, the age of the players that he has, how long is it going to take? And who is going to be the person whose head's on the chopping block if that thing doesn't happen and work?
Right.
And so he will be, I'm sure, in very high demand for some teams who are thinking about making a change as far as a new general manager concerned. And in his case, he probably has made enough money that he can live the rest of his life without having to work. And so he can pick and choose as to where he would like to go and maybe move his family. But then again, his kids may be entrenched in wherever he is. They may love it. I mean, it's a tough thing picking your kids up and taking them out of school, just like Brent didn't want to do anything with his kids.
There you go.
And so there's so many other factors that come into play. But I think your analysis of the situation, I think you're spot on with that. That it for him to stay there under the circumstances that exist right now, I think would be foolish from a professional standpoint.
I mean, they had a hell of a run, but this is where they're at. And look, I feel like if you have the energy to take on this task, and it's going to take a lot of energy, you could still make things right with the Warriors.
No, but you don't. You're not going to be able to have the team there, and everybody's expecting that. He has nowhere to go but down.
Exactly. Yes, that's fair too. Yeah. So they're in a tough spot, man. I don't know what that. Anyways, do you want to hear another question? We got quite a few more.
Go ahead.
Here's Lee Strambolis.
Hey, Rick. Do you think that the Warriors will possibly try to trade Jordan Poole this offseason? And do you have any thoughts on who the replacement might be for Bob Myers? Thank you.
we're just talking about that, and Cyrus told you that the word out is, or the seems as though Mike Dunleavy Jr. would be the general manager, and then Joe's son Kirk would wind up being, president of the team or president of basketball operations, however they want to title it, and hopefully, if that's the case, they'll work well together. That would be a good thing, an important thing, because the last thing want to have is that two people in the position of making decisions are on opposite ends of the spectrum. That would not be good. And here's the thing I don't understand, and I've said this for decades. Why in the world do they not give coaches a big say on who they take as a player? He's the one that has to coach them. He's the one that knows the game inside out, who was sometimes a player himself. But anyway, let him be the guy, because he's the one that his head's on the chopping block mostly all the time. The general manager gets off the hook. It's the general manager who gives him chicken crap and says, make chicken out of this. And then the coach gets fired. And so if he gets the players and you bring, and the GM's got to understand, fine, can't let him go get somebody that in his heart he feels is a dog. I mean, obviously you got to step up and say that's ridiculous. But if he's talking about quality type players, the coach may have an idea of the type of player he wants. And if he's going to fit in and be able to execute what the coach wants to have executed on the court in the best way possible, I think you should let him have that player. And then therefore, if it doesn't work, then you get rid of the coach, because he's the guy that chose to do this and he's not getting the job done. Whereas when you don't have that authority as a coach and the ability to do that, then I think as a general manager, if you really truly want to be fair about it, you have to look at the personnel that you have. How are these guys relating to the coach? Are they giving an effort every time they step out there on the court? Are they getting better and making progress? And it shouldn't be about what the wins and losses are.
Yeah, I agree. I know Steve Kerr does have a say with personnel on the Warriors, but you're right. In most cases, I don't think that's the case, and I don't understand how.
I don't think he has the thing to make the choice, the final choice.
Yeah, you're right. I don't think he has that. My understanding is no major decisions are made without his consultation. Like when they talk about the James Wiseman draft pick, for example, back in 2020, what's been publicly reported is that all three of them, Lacob, Myers, and Kerr, agreed to pick Wiseman. They were all on the same page, supposedly. That's what the reporting says.
Yeah,
So,
but then I don't think, because it was pretty obvious that Bob came out in one of his interviews and didn't seem to be exactly overjoyed about the way the Wiseman was used.
correct. Well, and that's been a criticism of Kerr, is that he, when he feels a certain way, that's how he goes. So maybe he wanted Wiseman and then realized at some point that's no longer going to be something that I don't know. I don't know what's going on there, man. This is a mess. That's all I could say about the Warriors right now. It's a mess. It's a mess.
Well, they still did a pretty darn good job, because I didn't necessarily, even though they were defending champions and stuff, the thing that I didn't think they'd have a chance to win the title. I told you that way before, and only because of the fact that for some reason, and I don't know how the hell it happened, they stopped being a good defensive team.
Yeah.
Until later in the season. On the road, especially.
Yeah, until later in the season, they started turning things around a little bit. But you're right. It's been a staple of this dynasty is their defense, and that did not show up this year. And you constantly say, and I echo these sentiments because I think you're 100% right, that defense is a team concept, and that's been a huge reason why the Warriors until this year have been successful at it. Why they struggled this year, I don't know. I mean, the one key piece that changed from a year ago was Mike Brown, who was the defensive coordinator, the number one assistant. He left to Sacramento. Kenny Atkinson took over. Kenny Atkinson inherited the defensive coordinator position. No one seems to know much about Kenny Atkinson. He doesn't make himself available to the media for interviews. And like you said, though, Mike Brown took over Sacramento, won Coach of the Year unanimously, but they weren't known for their defense either. So
no, because but what he did is he freed up their personnel and made them one of the best offensive teams.
Correct.
In the game, because he realized that was their strength, and so he had to do that, and he wasn't able to get them to be as good a defensive team as he might have liked. That's why I think that next year they'll be a much better team. The experience that they had in the playoffs and realizing that they could have done better and should have done better, will help them for next year. But they're a heck of an offensive team. I really like Fox and And Monk. I mean, I ran into Monk. I think I told you I ran into Monk at a signing.
Well, I saw the picture. Anyone can. By the way, folks should follow Rick Barry on all social media platforms at Rick24Barry, and it's on your Instagram account that he posted that picture with Malik Monk. That was awesome. I saw that. It was beautiful.
Yeah, and I like him. I mean, his game has improved and from college, and he's become a better outside shooter. He attacks the basket. I like it, making passes, and so very nice. And Fox obviously was Fox got the Jerry West Award. I mean, clutch player of the year. I mean, the way he scored in the fourth quarter and doing things. So if they add some elements to that team as far as who they bring in as some veteran players and what they do with their draft pick. If they have any, I don't know what the status is with that, but they should be a much better basketball team. So it's going to be interesting to see. But I'm most concerned about what the Warriors are going to wind up doing because Steph's got a few years to be able to still play because he played at such a high level this year. I just don't know. I just don't know if they can be as good a team next year as they were this past year. I don't know.
I'm with you. I'm with it. And here's the other thing, Rick. And again, I'm telling you. What I'm telling you is obvious to you, but for the audience in general is even though Stephen Curry's skill set is still about as elite as it gets, and even though he's still showing us that he could even improve in some regards, he's also going to turn 36 next year. And regardless of how good he is as a player, we are seeing his body starting to break down. I mean, he's missing chunks of games each year. This year he had the shoulder injury. We saw him with that sleeve the rest of the year. I think he had another issue. He had like 2 injuries this year. It was a shoulder and something else. Maybe it was a knee. But regardless, that's what happens. Your body starts to break down. And regardless of how good Stephen Curry is, even if skill-wise he's at the peak of his powers, you also have to account for the fact that he's realistically probably going to start missing 30, 40 games a year. And you got to live without that. So I agree. I think this is expectations need to be low next year for the Warriors. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm curious. It's going to be interesting, right? I mean, we could.
Well, they may very well make the decision that they are going to start the rebuilding process for the future. They may very well make that decision and get rid of a lot of the big contracts and start picking up some other people and have a chance to get some young talent that's out there and give up players that other teams would have an interest in and unload a lot of the salary and bring in some other people to do it. Look what Miami did. They got 6 undrafted players.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. It's impressive.
So I'm telling you, and I'll say it again, because I get them mad every time I say it. The scouts that are out there, there are scouts out there that wouldn't know talent if I walked up and bit them in the head. I'm serious because there's a lot of. Trust me, there's a lot of talent out there.
I trust you.
We just had our draft of the Big Three and an opportunity to coach again. So thanks to Ice Cube for that. And I'm very happy that I was able to get 2 players we got 2 players that I like a lot. And the one player who I'm not even going to start talking about him stuff because I'm going to wait to see him in person. But what I've seen him in video, whoa.
Give the name because we hyped this up.
The first time I'm excited about being able to watch what this young man does.
What's the name? Because I hyped this up, Rick.
It's Jalen Johnson, okay?
Jalen Johnson. Look him up, people. Look him up.
Yeah. I mean, just because of his size, I'm just talking about. My other player, Summers, is really nice. He was the best drafted player in the league last year in the Big Three, but this guy played in the G League. Played with my son Canyon in the Iowa Wolves, but he also played for some other G League teams. But he shoots 40% from threes. And Cyrus, did I send you the video of him? Yeah.
What did passes like Jokic?
What do you think of his passing?
Incredible. He looks like Jokic offensively.
Yeah, I mean, he's making Joker-like freaking passes, but even more so, putting it on the floor, going to the basket and throwing off the dribble and stuff. And then the one pass that he made, he's got the ball, he went down, he's in the far corner on the right side. He made a pass all the way under the basket to the far corner for a wide open 3. This is a 6'10" guy doing this.
Yes, and so he played in Louisville. He went undrafted, and he's been in the G League since 2017. I don't know if he played with Canyon. He played for the Iowa Wolves twice.
Yeah, he was on the team with Canyon for one season. Okay,
there you go. So in 2019-20, I'm guessing. And here's another interesting thing about Jalen Johnson is, and I'm sure you can sympathize with this, especially as his mom played professional basketball at the University of Wisconsin. And was the first woman to lead the country in blocked shots. She's the first woman to lead the nation in block shots altogether. Like, she averaged more block shots than any male player at the same time. So she was the first player to ever do that. So there you
Yeah,
go.
no, he's. I'm really looking forward to seeing him. Seems like a really nice young man, and I'm for the first time doing it with the personnel that we have there. I'm excited, and I'm going to put some stuff in that you're going to love because I mean my whole thing is if you have a guy like that that can do this like the Joker, and you can pull the other team's big guy away from the basket. Man, does that open up opportunities for your other stuff, and especially if your guys are smart and they can learn how to set a guy up and back cut and all, and you got a guy that can pass to him, you're going to get so many easy baskets, and it's going to be so much easier if they beat their guy because the other big guy isn't there. If the big guy leaves and goes to help, just throw it back out to the big man and let him get a wide open three. And if he's shooting almost 40% or something, high 30s from 3-point range, I'll take that all day long.
Yep. I'm with you. Yeah, Jalen Johnson. Look, I'm gonna Kevin Dana, the voice of the Santa Cruz Warriors. He studies G League players, like a nuclear physicist would study, the splitting of the atoms. He loves this stuff. I'm gonna talk to him about Jalen Johnson, hear his thoughts. But yeah, you send me that clip of Jalen Johnson. There were a series of clips. It was an Instagram post, and it blew me away. I'm shocked he's not playing right now. I don't understand why he's not in the NBA, but if the Warriors are going to roll the dice on someone, why not him? I'm with you.
I mean, the thing is as you say, I have to see and have, obviously clips or something. You're always taking the best of everybody. You don't know all the other things that he's doing. But just the fact that he can do what he was doing in those clips, most big guys can't do that.
He handled the ball well, too.
Yeah.
It wasn't just the passing.
He's 26 years old, and he goes to the basket and dunks and goes over. I mean, so anyway, it's going to be exciting. So,
yeah.
Well, we'll talk again next week, maybe sometime, and see what's happening.
Are we done, Rick? Are we calling it a wrap?
Well, I think we are. My wife's walked in. She wants me to go.
All right, sir. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Thank you.
There she is. See, she's trying to get me off.
Hi, Lynn.
He's talking too long. Let's go. All right, bye.
All right, so everybody stay well, and it's going to be fun to see all of the things that are going to take place. It's always fun to talk sports, but I'm going to look forward to seeing how the Miami Heat play in game number 2 tomorrow. That's going to be the interesting factor, and how Denver reacts to that and what they're able to do, and whether they have the letdown like they had in the last game in that fourth quarter. So fun stuff to always talk about the game of basketball. I love the game, and I'm going to root everything. The Suns USA team with his teammates. Jimmer Fredette is on that team, and Dylan Travis and Kareem Maddox and my son. They won in the quarterfinals in the World Cup in 3x3 for the USA. So they're playing Brazil tomorrow in the semifinal. So I'm hoping that they can find a way to win 2 more games and bring home another gold medal for the USA.
Is Canyon single?
Yeah.
Yeah, because there's a couple players on that women's team that I strongly recommend he pursues. Just that, I'll leave it at that.
Well,
Rick, always a pleasure.
On the USA national 3x3 team?
On the women's team, yes.
No, the 3x3 team, not the U.S. national basketball team.
The 3-on-3, correct? Yes, yeah. There are actually 2 players that South Canyon
actually has a very nice young lady that he's that he's seeing right now, and who knows where that's going to go. But she's very nice. She's a good athlete herself, and she's a meteorologist.
Oh, there you go. All right.
I learned more about weather stuff now than I ever knew.
And again, everyone can follow Rick Barry on all social media platforms at Rick24Barry. You can follow me on Twitter at DogSurfRoadshow. Rick, it is always a pleasure, sir. Thank you.
All righty. Take care. Bye.